First one. No.
Yeah, that's right.
Suppose if you can be anywhere to be.
To the mark anyhow. I wouldn't put it past.
After the meeting. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I open the ordinary council meeting of the 17th of September. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. All councillors and staff are required to speak into the microphone, and you may need to move your microphone closer to you to ensure you are heard and recorded on the live streaming. Your microphone will glow red when it is picking you up. I call for apologies for absence. Hamling. Someone move that apology, please. Councillor Mileto, second Councillor Munro. All in favour?
Aye.
Yes, thank you. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you're respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording will be made for administrative purposes. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter for consideration at the council meeting? No, you have a late item there, 5.13, which is local government elections. See, as a late item on the agenda.
Move it.
Someone move that be accepted. Seconded, Councillor Romano. All in favour?
Aye.
I'll just do item 2 first, mayoral minutes. That's 2.1. It's just the Central New South Wales JOO meeting and board meeting papers.
The recommendation.
Councillor Nugent, seconded. Councillor McRae, all in favour? Aye, against. Thank you. Look, I'm proposing, if I can get a seconder, move the election of Deputy Mayor and the Policy Committee Chairman to now, so we can get them out of the way, because we've got quite a fair bit in the forum.
You to support that, Mr Mayor?
You'll support that, Councillor Whitten. Second, Councillor Munro. All in favour?
Mr Mayor, I don't know if it's out of order or not, but I think would it be a good idea for whoever wants to stand for Deputy Mayor, I know there's a few of us that are interested, speak on what they would do and what they would do with the position for the Deputy Mayor. I've been here since 2012 and never have we, when we go to election for our Mayor or Deputy Mayor in Council, do we give the individuals the opportunity to talk to their fellow councillors on what they propose.
Well, probably if you'd like to, excuse me, if you'd like to put that up as a resolution for the next time, I can't do it now without a resolution to council, and I couldn't do that. We could put it up for
Mayor,
next time.
I wouldn't have enough time to tell you how good I am, so we get.
No. Just some points of
I could get a postage stamp for you.
I just think it's important for people, the other councillors and the public to know what you try and do as deputy mayor.
Okay, fine. Put that up as a resolution. We could do that for next time. I'd have no hassle
We'll
with
do
it.
that. That'd be good.
Do it tonight. Okay, we'll move over to.
Vote to.
We've got to have a vote. We'll do the election of deputy mayor and policy meeting chairman now. All in favour? No hand. Anyone against? No. Okay, we'll move to election of deputy mayor, which is item 5.1.
Bear with us, this can take some time. So I'll give you a narrative as I go through. I'm going to unlock the ballot box, which during the week nominees have put their forms into. Put the nominations. Box is empty. Check the rules. Deputy.
Excuse me.
So let me check the roll code.
I haven't drunk out of mine. You can have this one.
We have 4 nominations. They are, and I'd ask those councillors who are nominated to confirm that they wish to accept the nomination. Councillor Romano,
Okay.
Councillor Jeff Whitten, Tony Miletto,
Yes.
and Councillor Scott Munro. Are there any other nominations, councillors? Position of Deputy Mayor. There being no other nominations, we will transfer these names to the ballot paper. I can confirm the box is empty. Councillors, you will receive 1 ballot paper each. You need to mark that ballot paper according to the instructions on the top of the ballot paper. Formal votes, not marked in accordance with the rules, will be rejected at the count.
Look, while we're waiting for those to go out for the people for the forum, tonight we have 9, 13, 17 speakers at the forum, so have to limit speakers to 2 minutes each. So if you've got time to prepare now, so just remind it may be helpful if you've spoken before on an issue, try and confine your remarks to any new issues you'd like to bring forward. So we'll do 78 Lantana Place first, then 10 William Street, and then Gosling Creek Reserve. Okay, so
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move a resolution that we give Lantana a little bit longer. Was the issue was before. I'd like to go and give them at least 3 to 4 minutes. 4 minutes.
I've just worked it out. If I did that, that would be an hour and nearly 20 minutes, plus changing speakers, that'd be an hour and a half. And we've said, and you've passed a resolution of council, that the public forum would be 7 to 7:30.
Yep. All right.
Mr Mayor, I do think it's a sensitive issue, and I don't know if speakers like to, cut a few out, maybe put some, I don't know, maybe they can think about how they could probably.
That's why I just mentioned it. That's why I just mentioned it again now.
I'd suggest that they're all sensitive issues and it should be consistent, so the timing's equal for all of the speakers on all of the matters tonight.
Yeah. Thank you. Get a paper to Councillor Taylor.
Taylor. Councillor Taylor, we're doing an ordinary ballot. You're required to follow the instructions, please.
It's not preferential.
Ordinary ballot.
You go.
Who do we vote for?
1, 2, 3, 4, or just one? No, I voted for that.
I can help you.
Councillors, the way this works is if there is there are 4 candidates, as you know. We have a candidate with only one vote who would be excluded now from the ballot, and that is Councillor Munro. Put that aside, leaving us with 3 candidates into the next round, being Councillor Whitten, Romano and Leto. So we start the process again to narrow it down to 2.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, councillors, the lowest scoring in this round, Councillor Whitten, who is now excluded from the ballot. So then the final ballot is between Councillors Romano and Miletto.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. This one. Councillors, ladies and gentlemen, sorry, I missed that, sir.
Can't count those. We're going to.
We'll have that as a matter arising. I can declare that Councillor Romano has been elected. You're willing to accept that? And
I'm willing to accept, and I'd also like to thank the other candidates, Councillor Miletto, Councillor Witten and Councillor Munro, and thank the councillors for Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
We'll now move back into the chairs to do the chairs of the policy committees.
That's 5.2. Will someone just move they can destroy the papers? Thanks, Councillor Whitten. Second, Councillor Duffy. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. 5.2, excuse me, is Chairman of the Policy Committees. I can't even find it. Do those, please.
So, councillors, the nominations for the various policy committee chairs are Councillor Miletto for Employment and Economic Development. Would any other councillor like to nominate for that position?
If not, we'll declare Miletto elected. On with economic development.
Finance.
The next committee is the Finance Policy Committee, and Councillor Joanne McRae has been nominated. Are there any other councillors wishing to nominate for that position? That being the case, Mr Mayor, you have one nomination.
Declare Councillor McRae elected.
For the Services Policy Committee, I have a nomination for Councillor Stephen Nugent. And are there any other nominations for that position?
Nominate Councillor Scott Munro.
Councillor Munro, would you accept that nomination, councillor?
Right, we need a show of hands here. Councillor Munro, hands up please. All 5, 6. Councillor Nugent. Declare Councillor Munro elected.
There are no nominations as yet for the Infrastructure Policy Committee. Would any councillor like to nominate?
I nominate Councillor Jeff Whitten, please.
Any
Councillor Whitten,
need a seconder for that?
Councillor Whitten?
Yeah, I'll do
Seconder,
that.
Councillor
I
McRae?
accept that, Mr Mayor, sorry.
Yep. You have one candidate.
Any other nominations? Being no other nominations, so declare Councillor Whitten elected.
Mayor, the Sport and Recreation Policy Committee. There is a single nomination from Councillor Jason Hamling. Are there any other nominations from councillors? In case you have one candidate.
Declare Councillor Hamling elected.
For the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee, we have a nomination, Councillor Stephen Nugent. Are there any other nominations?
Yes, I'll nominate Councillor Privatera.
Seconder for that.
Councillor Munro seconded. Okay, it'll be by show of hands. Councillor Nugent. Councillor Privatera, I declare you elected.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Ms Mayor, there is one more committee, which is the Planning and Development Committee, and there are no nominations as
I'd
yet.
like to nominate Councillor Turner, please.
The nomination of Councillor Turner. Second, please. Councillor Munro.
You accept that, Mr Turner?
Any other nominations? No other nominations. I declare Councillor Turner elected. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. The council meeting adjourns for the conduct of the open forum, and as I said, speakers will have 2 minutes each, and we'll start with 78 Lantana Place, and our first speaker will be Luke Holden. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The rescission motion should be allowed on the following grounds. The failure to appropriately consider the environmental, social and economic impacts, vulnerable people at risk, as well as the existing neighbourhood within the development area. Who is liable if someone is injured due to non-compliant retaining walls? How many lives and property will be lost if emergency services cannot access the rear units? Who are those remaining looked to for compensation for their loss? Housing Plus, the engineer, councils. It's my respectful submission that council puts itself at liability if the motion is lost tonight and they have not considered the economic and social impacts as required under the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. Council has a duty of care to complete their due diligence on every application before them for the benefit of ratepayers and limit the amount of funds that are wasted on unnecessary litigation. Former residents in Lantana Place who are unable to be here tonight have recently had the following experience. Their property was on the market before Housing Plus publicly announced the proposed development. The day before the public announcement, they had received and accepted an offer. The day following the public announcement, that offer was rescinded, directly resultant from the proposed development. The property did sell, but for $35,000 less, and took an additional 6 weeks through no fault of their own. Not only did the proposed development directly devalue their market value of the property, it also extended the selling time of the property. The planner's report for this DA does not address either the economic or social impacts of the proposed development. Additionally, there is a limited scope of the environmental impacts. but again, that is just limited. The Auditor General published a report in 2018 stating that the management of any social behaviour in public housing is poor and the records do not accurately reflect the true nature and extent of any social behaviour in public housing. The audit report also highlights a 2017 survey of public housing tenants that showed 79% witnessed worsening or no improvement in neighbourhood security and safety, and that 70% of public housing staff agree that safety has not improved. This identifies the majority of people who live in or work in public housing do not find these places safe. The Australian Institute of Criminology reported in 2015 a high correlation between police detainees and those being in temporary accommodation. The proponent actually does offer that service. The proponent also states on page 70 of their Statement of Environmental Effects that the proposed development will increase crime in the area. No increase in crime is acceptable to the residents of Orange. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks very much, Mr. Holm. Our second speaker is Jordan Naylor. Mr. Naylor.
Good evening, Mayor Kidd and fellow councillors. Thanks for your time tonight. I'd just like to address my concerns on the development for Lot 78, Lantana Place. Firstly, I'd like for you guys to assess this land as it sits today, the 17th September 2019. A block of land on an 8.9 metre wide street. I note Councillor Turner's comment that Mr Slattery will sell his land. When? He may sell it tomorrow, I don't know. Who knows? However, this is not a given, and Lantana Place should be voted on how that land is right now. Secondly, I would like to, in relation to Councillor McRae's question, would we be having this discussion if it was any other developer? Yes, I would, because that land is not suitable for 10 extra homes up the end of that cul-de-sac, or it should be a cul-de-sac. Australian Road Standards 1348 states turning areas must be provided at the termination of all roadways to ensure that all vehicles entering and exiting can do so in a forward direction. My next question is to the council: would this be approved if this was any other developer? Using the driveway of your neighbouring unit to exit your own driveway is surely not safe entry and exit to a dwelling. Although complying, is this a compliant development because this is Housing Plus? We note comments from residents that have tried to purchase the land and have advised that the land cannot be sold until Mr Slattery's land was developed. There was never an option for them to pay for services to be provided to the land, and in event Housing Plus should be required to provide a turning head, in my opinion, to the end of the street, because based on the current situation, not that something that may happen tomorrow, a week, a month, or 10 years.
Just about there, you know.
Righto. Housing Plus, I don't disagree with Housing Plus. They do a lovely thing for the community. The over 55, they've told us over 55s, I don't know. They provide housing for whoever's in need, and they cannot guarantee who or what we're going to get here. It keeps changing. With all due respect, can you please look at this development as it sits right now? Because I feel that should be how it sits. Let's forget this is for Housing Plus. It's a matter of this should be a safe place for the people living there as it sits now and for the future residents. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Naylor. I'll just remind the forum it's not a contest to clapping people. I don't really think that's quite appropriate. I think all the speakers will speak quite well and give their opinions. Andre Ferry? Andrea, sorry, my apology.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors. Thank you very much for your time tonight. I will try to compress the next expected 25 years of my life down to 2 minutes. I live 300 metres walking distance from the proposed site of Lot 78 Lantana Place. In 2013, my husband and I realised a long-term dream of purchasing a block of land and building our dream home in a dream location. That being a quiet cul-de-sac to give our children the same wonderful experience I enjoyed growing up in a cul-de-sac in Orange. I played street cricket barefoot with my neighbouring children. Climbed trees, I played hide and seek. The entire street was our playground. Our time in 2013 started out just as we had hoped. We both made friends quickly, as did our children. They learned to ride their bikes in the cul-de-sac just as I had done. In 2016, our wonderful neighbours were evicted from the house next door as it was purchased by Fax for the use of social and affordable housing. Fax are under the same umbrella as Housing Plus. Within a week of the new tenants arriving, cigarette butts started appearing on our lawn in the gutters. Needles and small empty Ziploc bags were found in our garden. In the first month, heavily pregnant, I was attacked in my garage by the male tenant after picking my children up from school for apparently being on his property, I quote. My 2-year-old was asleep in the car, my older children watching in horror as I screamed for my husband to come and help me. Once the male tenant realised my husband was home and I was not alone, he instantly became less aggressive and began to backtrack. My husband tried many times to escort him peacefully off the property, but it was not without resistance. Phone calls and reports were made to Fax. These reports were not recorded, as we found out. Since the incident, I can't enter or leave my own garage without locking my vehicle and making sure that I am alone. I was advised strongly by my doctor to begin taking antidepressant medication after several visits and tests confirmed high levels of depression, stress and anxiety stemming from that one incident. My husband immediately took time off work and spent savings that we had for holidays to install a security system to ensure my safety as a full-time mum to 4 children, ages 10, 8, 5 and 2. My children can't play in the street, they can't ride their bikes anymore due to the new tenants. At the time, their love of burnouts, their love of speeding up and down a cul-de-sac street to test out their latest vehicle modifications.
Andrea, that's 3 minutes you've had so far.
Okay, just also consider the use of me stopping the use of my own clothesline because of illegal spray painting and drug use from their own home wafting into our house. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Joshua.
Good evening. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. You just heard from my wife. That was our first tenant next door. Housing Plus cannot guarantee the demographic of tenants because of the mutual exchange program. It allows swapping of tenants across different agencies, from Fax to Housing Plus. That's how we ended up with our neighbours now. Where to start? Our house is on a battle axe block. Our driveway is the only frontage we have to our cul-de-sac. We noticed with our new neighbours, I'm not going to repeat all the issues because I don't have the time tonight, but the major issue was we put our bins in our cul-de-sac for collection every week, and then we noticed they were starting to be stacked in our driveway to barricade us in. Well, I've had to move them every week to take the kids to school, sometimes in the rain. So I approached the man and asked him why. Basically, I was threatened with unrepeatable violence. I won't repeat that here. I was threatened with bikie gangs turning up to my house. So I just walked away and I called the police. I made complaint to Fax in regards to the incident. I sent in police reports, camera surveillance, and was told every day for 8 weeks that someone would turn up to do something about it. After 8 weeks, taking time off work to convert videos, send emails, I was informed that they might get a warning. That's it. Nothing. There aren't any social behaviour policies state they should have been evicted immediately. No rules set out in the New South Wales Tenancy Act were followed, and that was on the 14th of April. That was 5 months ago. I've now given up. Ridiculous. My dream has faded, and I don't even use my front lawn anymore.
Can you get it? You're right if you'd like to come back in a moment. Mark Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So our main problem, mate, when we bought our house, a single block of land in the end block of Brooklands Drive, we built our house there. We dreamed about building a house for a long time, and we bought the whole block of land. Since then, six blocks of land in our block, 14 houses in our block. So I've got 4 neighbours either side looking in my backyard, and we're talking about putting another 6 across the back. They're elevated and I'm below, so I'll have another 6 looking in my backyard. That's now 10 different neighbours all looking into my backyard. I believe that the blocks of land are overpopulated already. So I don't think that sticking another whole heap of blocks of land in there really going to help. The other thing is the safety aspect. I've got 3 little girls, all under 8, and these blocks of land look straight into my backyard. And they told us over 55s. Now it looks like it could be other people from all walks of life. Mate, I'm just worried about my kids in my backyard and these people staring straight in. And that's our major problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Martin Burnt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors and council staff. Please refer to the following document to look through while my speech is going. So, to cut down time, can you please turn to the Housing Plus page? Housing Plus Initial Transitional Service targets offenders of medium to high risk of reoffending. Now, Housing Plus are going to have social and affordable housing. This is unacceptable risk to all of our local community. Please turn the page. State Environmental Planning Policy for Affordable Housing. Retaining walls and structural supports must be certified by a professional engineer to ensure that they are structurally sound. Before Council's planning and development will issue a construction certificate, they request engineering plans in condition number 8. Engineering of retaining walls must be certified by an appropriate geotechnical structural engineer to comply. I work within the mechanical engineering field myself. Please turn the page. New South Wales Government, Planning and Environment, Earthworks and Retaining Walls. Please turn the page. Retaining walls must not be located within 1 metre of a side or rear boundary and must not exceed more than 1 metre in height at that point. They must not exceed 3 metres in height in any other location. Please turn the page. Figure 2 states the maximum heights and the distances from the boundary. Note the bottom figure shows the maximum 3 metres and the 1.5 metres from that. Please turn the page. Note the height of the retaining wall is 4.5 metres high. It is higher than the maximum permissible 3 metres by 1.5 metres. Also note the retaining wall circled in yellow is not on the boundary line. This is because it is bordering council land. It is the only complying retaining wall within the development proposal. Please turn the page. Note the 3 retaining walls highlighted in pink are on the boundary lines. This is not acceptable and does not comply with state legislation. Through extensive consultation with specialist planning law firms, they have all confirmed this is a clear breach of legislation and will be overturned in the Land and Environment Court. In the instance of Council upholding the approval of this development application, we will promptly lodge a suit with the Lands and Environment Court. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is Jessica Byrne?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors and council staff. I object to the proposed development application DA 1412019. Last meeting, we discussed affordable housing development that Housing Plus wished to have approved in Lantana. My fellow neighbours spoke passionately about the breaches of state legislation and financial impact, offering both facts and evidence. Many councillors spoke and voted on a motion. Please refer to the Housing Plus Post-Release Services Initial Transitional Services handout. In the proposed DA for Lantana Place, it states it will cater for social and affordable housing. One of the programs included under social housing is Initial Transitional Services, which is funded by Corrective Services New South Wales. It states, and I quote, Housing Plus provide post-release services in collaboration with Corrective Services New South Wales, which provides housing for offenders on parole who are at medium to high risk of reoffending. I am a mother of 3. Raising my children to feel safe and protected is something that keeps me up at night. We all live in an area with many young families and elderly people that stay active in our neighbourhood. The world our children are growing up in is very different to the world we grew up in. I want them to feel grown up, responsible, and like they can navigate their way home from school safely. These are all very important developmental skills that is in this day and age are taken for granted. We often wrap our kids up in cotton wool, but by doing this we take away important developmental and life skills. With criminals being freshly released from prison and placed in temporary housing for 12 weeks and the percentage of criminals returning to corrective services being 55.8%, it makes our neighbourhood a revolving door for criminals. I'm all for ex-criminals repenting and building a better life. They did their time, right? So should we all just forgive and forget? I can forgive, but I cannot forget. Councillors, you have a duty of care to our community. Your vote tonight may not affect you directly, but it will affect my neighbours, my friends, my family and my children in our day-to-day lives. You can call me a NIMBY all you like. But for the sake of my children, I do not want social housing in my backyard, and I definitely do not want criminals.
Our next speaker is Catherine Clark.
Good evening, Mr Mayor and councillors. Sorry, mine's been cut back to heaps too. I'd like to take this opportunity to strongly object to the proposed development at Lantana Place on the grounds that I too apparently am a NIMBY. Up until a few months ago, I didn't even know what that was, but since Housing Plus have disrupted our lives, I can now identify. I'm supposedly prejudiced and stuck up because I oppose this development. But do not judge me or my neighbours. You don't know our stories. Not one of us were born privileged or received a handout to get to where we are today or to have the homes or lifestyles we're trying to protect. We are modest, working class people who have worked bloody hard and made huge sacrifices to build and buy our homes. And many of us will be paying off substantial mortgages for decades to come. Whilst being portrayed as callous and insensitive for not taking into consideration the needs of the people that Housing Plus are targeting as tenants, I can assure you most of us have a very real understanding and first-hand experience of having lived ourselves in lower socio-economic areas. I grew up in Wilcannia, a town that has one of the largest socio-economic problems in the state. I know firsthand what it's like to not feel safe and secure in your home, to have your property damaged and vandalised just for the hell of it. I know how it feels to have my 80-year-old grandmother mugged and assaulted in her own front yard. When we left Wilcannia, we could barely give our house away. After living and experiencing situations like this in Wilcannia, we made the very real and conscious decision to move to Orange to buy a nice home in a decent, respectable area where my own children would grow up not knowing or experiencing that type of behaviour or lifestyle. Housing Plus state that the proposed development is targeted to meet the needs of the ageing population of 55 and over, but we know this isn't true. Justin Cantello stated in a letter to us that whilst the focus is to meet the needs of the ageing population, that they are unable to guarantee that the villas will be exclusively occupied by this demographic. Where will Housing Plus be when crime rates and nuisance behaviour increase and the proven issues that accompany low income and social housing develops in our area? Justin Cantello of Housing Plus spruiks that this development is their asset. No, Mr Cantello, when you go home at night, that roof over your head, that is your asset. You can leave this job tomorrow and not give a second thought to 7 Lantana Place, but yet we will have to live with the impact of that development every single day.
Ms Clark, your time's up. Thank you very, very much. Neil Collinson.
Hi, Mr Mayor and everyone. My name's Danielle. So when my husband and I first were told about Lantana Place, we're like, oh, affordable housing. Oh, that's okay, not too bad. For over 55s, oh, that's okay. And then we're like, oh, no, it'll be also social housing. We're like, oh, okay. And I was like, oh, what is that? I had to research and see what that was. And then I got told what it was. And one of my friends is a police officer, it was like, you need to move. You're going to have social housing behind you. I was like, really? Have to move? She's like, yep, you'll have nothing but problems. Sell your house now. And I was like, oh my God, that's our house. We've been there for 5 years. It's like, it's our home. Like, that's where we live. Like, my husband built it. And we're like, oh my God. Anyway. And then I spoke with a lady who works with Housing Plus, and yeah, she confirmed that she works with criminals who were just released out of jail, and she finds them houses. And I was like, oh my God, does that mean I'm going to have pedophiles or someone living behind me? Like, I've got little kids. Like, we live in a suburb where there's lots of families. And honestly, my anxiety and my depression and everything about this whole thing, it's been going on for nearly 12 months, and I'm really upset about it. And then the fact that my housemate now devalue because of it, it's really upsetting. And I'm just really it's just really concerning for me. My husband, he can't be here tonight because he'll be here with he's at home with the kids. But we're just really concerned about who's going to go in there. And they can't guarantee, and yes, they all have a job to do, like Housing Plus have a job to do, but if they're going to put criminals behind me, I'm going to have like security cameras, and we're going to have to get a bigger dog, and I'm not going to be able to sleep at night. And it's just really concerning, but thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Dawson. Joshua, would you like to speak again? Was it? You're right? Okay. Thank you. Yes, you may. You've got a minute.
Where Joshua left off. Has faded. I rarely use my front yard anymore. It sits there unfinished, and my children not only can't, they won't go into the cul-de-sac anymore. My children ask my husband why he has to go to work every morning. Why is he on call on the weekends? Why can't we take holidays when their daddy and their mummy just sit there all day? What is he supposed to tell them? Every time he goes to work, he worries what might happen. You can call us NIMBYs or what other acronym housing PR departments come up with, but until you have lived through our experience and witnessed how badly these projects are run and managed, you've got no right to judge us. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have David Fisher.
Well, good evening, Mayor Kidd and councillors, council officers, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Fisher and I'm CEO of Housing Plus. Thank you for giving me and my three colleagues an opportunity tonight to provide some additional information to assist in your decision. Before I do so, I'd like to congratulate the Mayor and the Council for securing ATEC Australia and its $30 million investment for the former Electrolux factory, breathing life into that part of the city and creating 25 to 30 manufacturing jobs. It's obviously to be welcomed and clearly shows the potential that the city has to offer. However, you'll be fully aware that there is a lack of affordable housing in Orange. The demand and cost of rented housing is increasing year on year, partially because house prices are rocketing and beyond the abilities of many low-income working families who are now turning to rent instead. Many rental properties are being lost to Airbnb and large infrastructure projects that are taking place in the city, all of which is putting pressure on the limited number of houses rented in the city. The last social and affordable housing built in the city was over 5 years ago. So when I look at the waiting list this afternoon, the current average waiting list for a house in Orange, a 1 to 3 bedroom house in Orange, is between 5 and 10 years. And as of this afternoon, there's 200 people on the waiting list. If Lantana is approved, those 10 units will provide much needed, safe, secure, affordable accommodation for 10 Orange families, make a small dent in reducing that waiting list for many years to come. I'll say explicitly and repeatedly, these are not for ex-offenders. They will not be for parolees. I can guarantee that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll just remind you to show a little bit of courtesy to the speakers. The courtesy was shown to all speakers, and I respect that for everybody. Vishy, you've got about 10 seconds to wind up.
The Lantana development is of 10 units. The first five units are for social housing. And much has been said about social tenants tonight. We are not facts, we're not a government department. We did a mock allocation of the 5 units back in April. So the people we're talking about
Mr.
who would
Fisher,
be elected...
you'll have to wind up.
With all due respect, Mayor, there's only...
With all due respect...
Only...
You're at 3 minutes.
You're at 3 minutes, and I said 2 minutes, and I warned everyone beforehand because we just haven't the time. You've got 3 other speakers, and I'm quite sure they'll get the point across.
If I may finish this point then.
You've got 3 seconds.
The 5 units would be let to a 44-year-old woman with a 14-year-old daughter, a 66-year-old woman with a 13-year-old grandson, a 57-year-old woman who requires a ground floor flat because she's a stroke.
Very long 3 seconds. Thanks,
and
Mr.
2
Fisher.
69-year-old women. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sarah Priestley.
Good evening. I'm speaking tonight in support of the development application for Mount View and Lantana Place and against the rescission motion. This development has been designed to meet the needs of the over 55s, the baby boomer population. This is a demographic who desperately needs stable, affordable accommodation that can be modified as their mobility declines in age, as they age. Concerns that parolees from Housing Plus's initial transitional support service will live here are unfounded. Simply put, a parolee in this program will not be able to meet the criteria and are housed in alternate, more appropriate accommodation that already exists in Orange. Tenants who enter into a lease with Housing Plus are bound by the same legislation that any real estate would require. When making an offer of housing, we review a large amount of supporting information about the person to ensure that we are matching them to a property that meets their needs. Residents of our properties have to prove that they have the ability to sustain a tenancy independently for a minimum of 6 months, and for affordable housing provide evidence of their employment and good rental history. Every single household member participates in tailored support coordination sessions where we discuss their household members' goals and challenges, resulting in an action plan where we work together to achieve their goals. For some, this focuses around education and increasing their earning capacity for them to be able to move into the private market either as renters or as homeowners. For a large older demographic, the support will often focus on plans to assist them to age independently, to remain in place, and to build social connections to reduce loneliness. Having regular points of contact with our tenants in addition to the regular house inspections allows us to identify and act on potential issues before they become apparent to the surrounding residents, compared to a traditional real estate which are required to wait until evidence of a breach is presented. Our tenants want nothing more than the chance to live securely within the surrounding neighbourhood.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Scott Taylor.
Good evening, Mayor Kidd, Orange City councillors and executive staff. I want to briefly address the issue of traffic in relation to the Lantana Place development. Traffic is one of the issues that form the basis of the rescission motion. We acknowledge that any new development is going to increase traffic somewhat. However, I refer you to page 47 of the planning report produced by council staff, which states, and I quote, "A further development of the vacant lot and future neighbouring lots to the west were anticipated when Lantana Place was constructed. As such, traffic volume increases for residential development are well within the existing road capacity." And again, from the same page, "The proposed development will not exceed environmental goals for peak volumes on local streets, nor will it adversely impact on pedestrian safety." The traffic meets the planning requirements. With regard to parking, Housing Plus has listened to the existing residents' concerns and provided more parking than is actually required by the DCP. In fact, we've provided an additional 6 car parking spaces to that required, which will mean visitors to the proposed development will not have to park on Lantana Place. In relation to the garbage truck, currently, there is no turning head at the end of Lantana Place. The garbage truck is actually using privately owned land to turn around at the end of Lantana Place. And in regard to our proposed development, it's anticipated that the garbage truck emptying the bins in Lantana Place will use the proposed internal access road to dwelling 7 to 10 to do a 3-point turn. And I have a page here available if the councillors would like, that clearly shows this. This is going to enable the garbage truck to safely turn around and be able to empty the bins on both sides of the street in a forward motion without reversing up Lantana Place.
Mister. We've got 2 minutes. I'm just allowing you to finish off like I did with most of the people that spoke previously.
Sure. So the traffic and parking both meet planning requirements. A brief comment with regard to the gentleman who mentioned the retaining walls. The retaining walls are shown on the site plan as stepped to reduce the height. We will be engaged, they will be designed by a structural engineer prior to the submitting of a construction certificate. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin Cantello.
Good evening, Mayor Kidd, fellow councillors and executives. Tonight I will be addressing 2 issues raised in the rescission motion, being social and economic impact. Last week you received the social impact analysis developed by Western Research Institute, which provides an analysis of the social and the economic impact of affordable housing developments within an established neighbourhood like this DA. Some key findings from that report include there was no evidence in the literature that affordable housing increased local crime rates. Concerns that antisocial behaviour and crime occur where social and affordable housing is not evidenced by the research findings. Affordable housing is integral to people's well-being, particularly older Australians. In regards to property prices, the impact of affordable housing was not universally positive or negative, and the magnitude of the effect was minimal. In regards to economic impact, the data illustrates the ongoing benefit of affordable housing freeing income from expenditure elsewhere in the economy, and improves the diversity of the local labour market. Housing Plus's own experience at the Isley Road and Bletchington Street affordable housing developments that were approved by Council, which are very comparable to this DA of social and affordable housing, is that we have not attracted one complaint over 5 years in regards to antisocial behaviour. These two developments, totalling over 20 homes, have provided important accommodation for many Orange households who Housing Plus are representing here tonight, while supporting Orange City's growth. In conclusion, this complying affordable housing development is a great opportunity for the Orange City Council to deliver on its own 10-year community strategic plan. More specifically, Strategic Objective 5.3, which states, work with not-for-profit organisations to support the need for affordable and social housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is re 10 William Street, and that's Diane G.
And councillors, there are two issues with the tree removal or required removal of the property at 10 William Street. There is a structural problem with the building, which is a heritage building, and also there is, more importantly, there is a safety issue. Lisa Brisbane, who is the leasee of the property, will talk to you about the safety issue, and I'm speaking about the structural problems. I had Mr. Daniel Cook from Cook Row Structural Engineers inspect the property, and I think you have some of the information tabled there. There is major damage has been done to the building, and he, in his opinion, it is because of the tree. Now, the tree is a wonderful tree, and if it was in my paddock, I would be more than happy, but it is really inappropriate to be where it is and to be causing the difficulties with that property. Now, if I spend a lot of money repairing that building, which is going to cost me a lot of money, and I have the same issue down the track, who is going to take responsibility of that when I have a tree that should never have been planted there and it is causing such problems? There are most of the walls over the last couple of years, so it's not something that's been there forever, have got significant cracks in them, and I feel that a property like that to deteriorate because of the tree that is there is not, it's just not the way to be. It needs to be taken down. Now, I've spent a lot of money with the structural engineer, and to bring that tree down is going to cost many thousands of dollars. And believe me, if I didn't think it needed to be done, I certainly wouldn't be spending upward of $7,000 to $8,000 to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Lisa Brisbane.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lisa Brisbane and I'm the Superintendent and owner of Canobolas Family Pet Hospital. I've operated the hospital from the premises at 10 William Street for more than 20 years. The hospital is a busy place. It is open 7 days a week, employs 22 people and accommodates in excess of 14,000 patients and their owners each year. Most recently, in the last 18 months, we've helped council by providing a drop-off point for stray animals till such time that they can be reunited with their owners or transferred to pound facilities. Provision of this service has increased the number of people from the general public coming and going at the hospital. You should all probably know that I'm actually a keen gardener and would never advocate a tree to be removed for aesthetics, convenience or further development. I have an affinity for this tree and have built up a connection with it over the last 20 years. The problem now is that it poses a risk to the building and I feel is a public liability risk to my staff, clients and the general public. Tree, like all eucalypts, has a bad habit of dropping limbs. I would like to dispute the council's manager city presentation statement that the tree has a record of structural soundness. This is just not true. It constantly drops small branches of approximately 5 centimetres in diameter. About 2 years ago, it dropped a 25 centimetre diameter live limb in the car park of the building and actually crushed the back of a car. Fortunately, no one was in the car or in the vicinity when the limb fell. More recently, my staff arrived at work one Sunday morning to find another 30 centimetre diameter live limb blocking the driveway. The limb was so large that they were not physically able to pick it up and move it, and we actually had to get help from one of the council rangers when they attended the clinic to pick up a dog to transfer to the pound facilities, and he had to actually go back to the depot and get a chainsaw to cut the tree up to allow access into the building. Fortunately, this limb did not cause any damage to property or people, but I hate to think what would have happened if any of my staff or a member of the public or even an animal had been standing nearby. I have an obligation to provide a safe workplace for my staff and clients, and I feel that the tree is now prohibiting me from doing this. Neither of these branches was sick or dead, and they were heavy, large, living limbs that were shed from the tree without warning. I'm aware that Bruce Smith's report deems the tree to be a healthy specimen and that it has stood the test of time and exhibits structural soundness.
You've had 2.5 minutes now.
Okay. I feel that the current health of the structure is not predictive of the future. Big consequence for me is that I will be liable if there is death or damage from this tree, and I feel that council has an obligation to permit me to provide a safe work environment and a safe place for people to visit with their sick animals. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker on Gosling Creek Reserve is Mr. Nick King.
Mr Mayor, councillors, council staff, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to address the meeting on behalf of the environmentally concerned citizens of Orange. I wish to express our concerns about the revised plan of management of Gosling Creek Reserve, which has been altered in order to provide for the inclusion of a 6-metre wide track, which will be intended to cater for events such as human-powered vehicles. We oppose this for the reasons expressed in our submission, which will have been read by members of council. We object to a provision in the plan of management for a human-powered vehicle track, as we feel it conflicts with the intention of the Gosling Creek plan of management, which requires the reserve to be developed as an environmentally based recreation area. The implementation of a master plan for the area has resulted in Gosling Creek being successfully developed to provide a safe place for passive recreation. In addition, the plan has made provision for the development of a high biodiversity conservation zone, which represents examples of flora which were once common in the area. We are of the opinion that a 6-metre wide track and the use to which it will be put will compromise the social and environmental milestones achieved in the reserve and allow it to be unnecessarily dominated by incompatible use, mainly for the benefit of a minority of users. Many present will have visited the reserve in the company of children and grandchildren and will be aware of how well it currently caters for family groups, beginner bike riders and those who simply wish to stroll around and connect with nature. It would be a tragedy if such a successful public open space should be spoiled. On the other hand, we should not be negative about the idea of constructing a human-powered vehicle circuit. Human-powered vehicle activities are a great idea and should be encouraged. A well-constructed circuit has the potential to stage a range of enjoyable events which would attract visitors to Orange.
Mr. King, we're there.
Sorry?
2 minutes is up.
Okay,
finish on.
Very quick. However, we feel that the Gosling Creek site, with its social and environmental constraints, is not the best site for a truly world-class HPV facility. An alternative site, which would be more appropriate for the construction of a serious human-powered vehicle track, is within the Bloomfield Park Reserve off Bargwanna Road. There is ample open space, plenty of space for spectators, and few environmental constraints. Moreover, if the track were to be established at Bloomfield Park, there would be no necessity to alter the plan of management for Gosling Creek
Mr. King,
to
you're pushing
accommodate
the
the
limit
necessity
here.
infrastructure.
Much.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes the public forum. I'd like to thank all the speakers for their consideration and courtesy shown. It's very, very difficult. But once again, I thank you on behalf of all councillors.
Mr Mayor, I believe you've covered it, but I will be declaring an interest in 5.12, which is the 10 William Street tree, as I have a pecuniary interest, as I have at times provided maintenance there.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Is that noted? Yeah, thanks. So, yeah. Our council meeting will now resume, and first of all with 3.1, that's confirmation of the minutes for the ordinary meeting held on the 3rd of September.
Recommendation.
Show of mover. Moved it. Councillor Romano, seconder. Hands everywhere. Councillor Munro. All in favour? Hands, please. Against? Thank you. 3.2 is confirmation of the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of Orange City Council held on the 10th of September 2019. Move Councillor Turner, second Councillor Nugent.
Just check, Mr Mayor. I'm not sure whether my memory is correct or not, just regards to the voting.
Voting.
I can just clarify for Councillor Miletto, there was the voting that was done in closed session, and then council came out of closed, and then the resolutions for closed were read out, and the council then resolved whether they accepted those resolutions. So it's a different vote to what occurred in closed session.
Okay. Right, all in favour? Show of hands, please. Show of hands, councillors. Against? Thank you. Carried. Number 4. It's notice of motion, notices of rescission. Rescission motion DA 141//2019 in brackets 1, lot 78, Lantana Place, Orange.
Happy to move it, Mr Chairman.
Mover in a second.
Move Councillor Duffy, seconded Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Basically, the first thing is that Lantana Place does not tick all the boxes as far as the planning laws are concerned. As mentioned by one of the speakers there, the Environmental Planning Assessment Act of 1979, 2203, says under 1, but goes down to B, the has to consider the likely impacts of that development, including environmental impacts on both natural and built environments, and social and economic impacts on the locality. People here tonight spoke about the social and economic impacts here tonight. And also go down a bit further, it's got in the public interest as well. Now I say the public interest simply because there's irrespective of who it is, there could be cop up anywhere, and it's starting to create an interest there. So there's a public interest. We've had an outcry up in George Wiley Place, we've had an outcry here and an outcry everywhere. It's coming. So it's not just one incident. At the meeting on the 3rd of September, the report did not really address the issues of 4.15B. The DA, as I said, doesn't tick all the boxes. Reference was made to the Western Research Institute as the social impact analysis. Analysis is what it is. Analysis is mainly about comparing Bathurst, Orange and Dubbo and all those places there. But if you're going to do an assessment, it has to be a social impact assessment done by professional people. And assessment such as indicators of a method used by the International Association of Impact Assessment, 2015, Planning Institute of Australia, Social Impact Assessment Position Statement, 2010, New South Wales Department of Planning, Environment, Social Impact Assessment Guidelines, 2017, assessment of the process, of the impact. But also some councils, and we're behind this, and I'm going to flag this now, councillors, that I think we should get on board with this because a lot of the councils have a social housing impact policy. And we don't have one. I think I'm going to flag that as a matter of rising if someone would like to jump on this time. The Western Institute of Research Analysis, as I said, was comparing mainly about Bathurst, Orange, Dubbo and Mudgee, nothing else. no real social economic impact at all. The above policies require people to have expertise. Those organisations that I spoke about a bit earlier require people to have expertise in that field. And it requires the undergoing of social planning, human geography and anthropology and et cetera, stuff like that. And using the appropriately qualified staff, using social science methods with a high degree of public involvement. This has not happened in each development application for social housing. The assessment process includes community consultation. All these things need to be documented. Community liaison groups, public meetings, information centres, workshops, focus groups, surveys, fact sheets, public displays, in-depth interviews, etc., on each day, on each development application in a locality. The social impact. As I said, there's not much information available in this DA as regards to what the social impact. So I have to go back to the actual, what one of the speakers spoke about, I think it was Mr. Holden. Mr. Holden said, went to the New South Wales Audit Office report. It said storage, some of the offences that were identified in social housing. Storage of illegal firearms, serious injury, we already heard that from one of the manufacture, trafficking and supply of drugs, physical assault, malicious damage to property, aggressive and threatening behaviour. We heard about that tonight as well. And I want to now go on to just a comment about that. I was in IGA on I think one day last week and someone was up there. I was confronted by someone that lived in social housing in Bletchington Street. And he virtually backed up everything that I just read out in that list there about drugs and syringes going over back fences and all those type of things there. So that was it. And then those people who stood in state elections and those type of things said every time, Dan, you get a phone call from the Police Association, get a phone call from the Paramedics Association and the paramedics themselves. They have concerns and they can nearly to rattle off without going where the places they go, what it is. And I do think we actually need a policy to address these issues.
You've got 5 minutes. You're 5 minutes up there.
Move an extension.
Move Councillor Romano.
Second.
Second Councillor Taylor. All in favour? Aye, thank you.
Aye. Chairman, I also have other issues with it. The cul-de-sac. Refer council to Carwoola Drive. Over in Carwoola, there's a turning circle there where it used to end. The planning development later on, a bit further. This where we are is going into actually at the moment is a cul-de-sac, irrespective of what's going to happen later on. So there's an example of what we've been happening. I look at the driveway which is being used of a neighbour's driveway to access one of the buildings. Retaining walls. We had one of the speakers speak about retaining walls. I have an issue with those. Not 100% sure who's right, our report or that report. And I have a problem with the density of the buildings, far too many. And I have a problem with the bins locations, what is there. One of those people who spoke here tonight, if I look out my back door here, there's a heap of these bins looking at me. But the big issue is everyone here, in this gallery here, except for a few, have concerns about their welfare and their safety. For God's sake, don't turn your back on something where we live in a tiered society. The rich, the poor, the whatever you want to call it, that's part of our history, it's part of our culture. It's the consistency of what it happens. And they have every right, and they have worked extremely hard for mortgages to give their kids the right to freedom and the right to play in a community and be part of that community. And they worked hard for it. So no way in the world am I going to not support those people in any shape or form.
On who gets up there and claps and so forth. Show a little bit of courtesy, please.
First time I've ever been clapped.
It's the first time he's ever been clapped, only encouraging him.
And his mum.
Councillor Duffy, that was very well said in many ways, and I empathise and understand the fears of the people around the area there. It is a compliant development. It's about what we do now. I personally won't support this development for good reason. I think should be putting these sorts of developments in a place where people can then buy around and they know what they're buying. I understand because I've had hardships myself in my life. I've worked very hard as well, and I know how important it is to have security, feel secure in your own home and feel secure in your area. Why people buy in areas, and that's why they go into big mortgages for that reason. If it has an impact or if it doesn't, there's a perception of it, and I see a lot of heartbreak, a lot of disappointment in people that have spoken, and can't support the DA as it stands. There are issues need to be resolved, goes forward, but I can't.
Thanks, Councillor Munro. Speaker for or against? Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll speak against the rescission motion. We have a situation where, by all accounts, it seems to be a complying development. First time in my experience as council where economic values of surrounding homes have been included as a consideration for a refusal. I find that quite surprising and that concerns me. The report from last week does indicate that the traffic meets planning. And Councillor Duffy has highlighted some concerns and some realities of Orange. And I appreciate we do live in a very stratified society. And we as elected councillors do have to make decisions for all in our community. Sadly, there are a number of people who don't respect the places that they are provided with for housing. But we can't just wish that they all move to Bathurst or Dubbo, or that that's where social housing should be only provided. Can we do better? Yes. I believe that there has been significant change in how affordable and social housing is managed. I would like to think that in Orange we are able to consider giving people those opportunities and particularly supporting an organisation like Housing Plus, which has put in a complying development. I also note that in the weekend paper, the new Bank of Queensland Chief Executive grew up in social housing in Darwin. So if we consider where people may come from, but where they may end up, perhaps it's not about just who's there, but particularly the kids in that neighbourhood, just as we need to provide safe and secure environments for all the kids who are currently there. And this is a decision I do not take lightly. I hear the concerns of the neighbours. I understand your fears. And I understand that we have a big decision as councillors that will impact on you and where you live. In Orange, we have limits of what is available for people's housing who are struggling. Affordable housing, affordable means that less than 30% of your household income is spent to put a roof over your head. There are many families who spend more than that on their mortgage, who are spending more than that on their rent, and we are seeing increasing pressure as Orange grows, particularly as a tourism destination where Airbnbs or other people with deep pockets are taking affordable rental housing out of our market. I will be voting tonight to provide safe, secure and affordable housing stock for our community, but I will stand by the decision of council tonight, whichever way those cards may fall.
Councillor McRae. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise to support the rescission motion. And a councillor of 14 years, I agree with Councillor McRae. We have to make decisions on behalf of the whole community. But we are elected by the community. We don't work for council. And Our council staff provide us with recommendations for us as councillors to deliberate on. We have the privilege of having a vote. We can make change. And because a complying development is a complying development, doesn't mean it is right for Orange. That is our decision to make. Because if we look at public housing, the problem we have here tonight is that we need public housing. There is no debate about that. We all agree on that. It's about where you put it. You can't put public housing into existing development estates because it is not fair. We're talking about, in development, you talk about social impact. There's another one, community welfare, the big one. Social impact and community welfare. It's about fairness. What is fair? You have people who have spoken here tonight and we saw their welfare at risk. They have worked hard to buy a home, build a home in an area that they chose. Now, we as councillors need to change policy for our staff to work with, that when new subdivisions are being developed, the developer put aside lots for public housing, pre-sale of those lots. Yep. The same way as we do green space, the same way as we do waterways. Now, what you will find is the developer probably won't like that because they know that it's going to probably impact their ability to sell lots around that area. That's bad luck. They either want the whole development or they don't. We make those decisions as councillors. We make policy for this council that our staff work with. So with this decision tonight, no, it's not hard. It is a complying development, but we are elected by the community of Orange. We represent their needs, and when they are, and we speak on their behalf. I'm not speaking here as Jeff Whitten. I'm speaking here for the people who have come to me with concerns about where they live and the impact on their life and what they've worked hard for. About me, about them. And at the end of the day, the decision we make as council, you have to live by. And if the developer wants to challenge that, then there are mechanisms in place and they all flow. But we as councillors certainly have the say in this chamber and the luxury to vote. And I say that tonight that we should support the residents who have built, taken risks, borrowed money, built homes in an established area and protect them and their investment. Now, when it comes to public housing, we need to change our strategy. Have developers put lots aside for that area so that everybody walks into an area with their eyes open and it's all fair. They know what's going in that subdivision. They know where it's going to be. They can choose to build there. They can choose not to build there. We don't create this sort of... Like I sat here tonight and I thought to myself, what are we doing to these people? Like, you know, why are we putting them through this sort of pain? It's not right. It's not fair. Right? All power to the public housing people for what they do and what they're doing for the community, but it doesn't mean that we have to put these people through the stress and the pain and the angst that they're going through. Sure, the developer has the law on his side. We get a vote. We get a vote. We represent the community of Orange. Those people put us here. Support our staff. They give us recommendations. We deliberate. We debate. We get a vote. Make a decision. Thank you.
Councillor Whitten. Councillor Nugent.
I rise to speak against the rescission motion. A rescission motion, voting for a rescission motion would basically be saying, that the decision we made 2 weeks ago was the wrong decision. I don't believe that is the case. I believe it was the right decision then. I believe it's the right decision now. Councillor Whitten, I agree with Councillor Whitten in terms of we need to, maybe we need to look at our policy and change our policy. But that's what we're talking about now is a development application which is before us, and we made a decision 2 weeks ago to support it, and I believe we should make that decision, reaffirm that decision tonight. Councillor Whitten sort of talks about speaking on behalf of the residents, and that's great, and I acknowledge their concerns. But I'd also like to talk on behalf of the people who in our community, the very low to moderate income households in our community who are here, who live here, who are struggling to find places to live, struggling to find affordable places to rent. I'd like to speak on their behalf. We're talking about people earning the minimum wage. We're talking about people on aged or disability pensions. But we're also talking about people working in low-paid occupations, such as childcare workers, cleaners, aged care workers. We're talking about people who are gainfully employed in the community. And we've heard from Housing Plus about the likely tenants or the tenants who are on that waiting list, fill those positions of both the affordable and social housing that is planned for that area. So, yes, we need to listen to, the local residents, but we also need to think about the bigger picture, about everyone in the community, about our role as a council in supporting, as it says in our community strategic plan, as Mr. Cantello pointed out, working with other community service providers to provide this sort of housing for an area of need, people who are in need, and a lot of those people who are elderly people, over 55, people with disabilities. So I think there's a great need for this. That's not in dispute. We have a social impact analysis, which we have been provided with, and as far as my reading of that document, it does address all of the issues that have been raised. It says to me, that when I read it, says it depends on how the quality of the buildings, the quality of the development, and also how it is managed. And I have trust and faith in Housing Plus that they will manage this development as they currently do other developments that they manage in a responsible, sensible way. So, so just to finish, I believe we made the right decision 2 weeks ago, and I'd be wanting to reaffirm that decision tonight.
Councillor Taylor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Look, I rise to support the rescission motion. Yeah, this is an emotive issue for me because this dealt with the same organisation, and at that evening, often fellow councillors, we face some disciplinary action over standing up for that community. Fact is that in 25 years' experience on this council, I've always put myself in the position of people who will be affected. We'll have plenty of debate and councillors will tell us about the need for social housing, affordable housing. I don't dispute that. I'll put my social conscience, my social record for the downtrodden and people who are less fortunate in this community on the line with anyone. 10 years I was the chairman of the Disability Access Committee. I've been the chairman of the Community Services Committee. I've been deputy mayor on 6 occasions. I've been 3 times. I'm from a Labor ilk and proud of it, Irish Catholic and proud of it. And I was brought up to look after the less fortunate in our community. So as far as credentials are concerned, as far as saying that we are against social housing, that is just an absolute fallacy. Councillor Whitten hit the nail on the head. There's your policy right in front of you, and I know Councillor Duffy will be rising later in the evening and I'll be seconding him for us to develop a policy so that we can deal with this. What's happening here is repeatedly we're going over this time and time again, where people who have worked hard, who have put their lives savings on the line for their assets, to have a community, to have a neighbourhood where they can raise their children in safety. They have that right. Yet Yes, people do have a right to social housing. Yes, people do have a right to affordable housing, but that does not diminish the right of the people who already have their homes in those neighbourhoods. You cannot negate that right. And I will always stand to defend those people who have been compromised and have worked their lives for their asset. So nobody, get it straight, nobody is saying there is no need for social housing here. Property values. Well, of course, property values should always be taken into account. I mean, who in this room would support a development in their own neighbourhood which was going to devalue the value of their own properties? I look around this room here. I look at some of the people who have spoke to support this tonight, and I will ask the question, what would they do if they were affected by this in their neighbourhood? I live in a beautiful cul-de-sac. I live in a beautiful part of town. I live in Baronia Crescent. I've got great neighbours all around me. But I know if there was something like this proposed, my neighbourhood would be up in arms also. It's the model that I'm opposed to. It's the compromising of people's rights as Australians and every fabric that we hold dear to us. You can't just throw people's lives out in a bin this way. You can't affect people. We've had people here tonight in tears. Don't you get how this is going to affect people? People who are proposing this, don't they get it? The model you're pushing is flawed. The model is totally flawed, and Councillor Whitten has preempted what we should be doing, and that hopefully will be addressing the issue. Look, nobody can give a guarantee of social housing and affordable housing that there won't be that one bad tenant that's going to cause. Nobody can look someone in the eye and say that that won't occur. That could upset the entire amenity of the neighbourhood. Those people have a right for those concerns. We've heard evidence tonight of people who have been told by authorities their concerns about. Go and talk to people who many years ago, I was on council when the Housing Department, the New South Wales Housing Department, put in the large structures that we see all around town at the moment. People who lived in homes for 50, 60 years, all of a sudden had 20, 30 unit blocks put beside them, and they had to deal. They were mostly elderly people, and I had to deal with them in tears and take them to representations to the Department of Housing. I've had a bit of experience with this, and you can't treat people's lives badly like that. You must defend people. Put yourself in their position. As far as the issues are concerned, I mean, there's been a number as far as the traffic. There's been issues as far as retaining walls. Look, as far as I'm concerned, it's an overdevelopment of the site. It's an overdevelopment, and that hasn't even been mentioned. That hasn't been mentioned here tonight once. I believe it's an overdevelopment. The residents have already indicated that they will, and good luck to them. If they do, that's their decision to make. I can't instruct them or dissuade them. But the fact
Taylor,
is they will be going.
I'll just have to get an extension.
I'll move
it.
Councillor Duffy, second. Councillor Munro, all in favour?
They've
Yes, thank you.
indicated that they will be going to the Land and Environment Court. That's their prerogative as Australians to do that. They have equal rights. They've put their lives into their homes. They've put their life savings into their homes. They've raised their children. What right do we, here, the people sitting around this table here tonight, some of the people here in this room that will never be affected by this issue, what right have you to say, oh yeah, but we need social and affordable housing in this? What right have you got to tell them that their lives must be potentially destroyed and the values of their assets totally destroyed because there is a need? So I'm for the rescission motion, and like I say, the most important factor here is that we need to address this recurring problem. We've got more coming up. We've got Emerald Place. It's coming up. We've had 78 Forbes Road already. Same organisation. Something at some stage the penny has to drop, that the model is not working, that it has to be reviewed, that we have to go back and visit how we address social housing and affordable housing in this city so that it doesn't impact good, hard-working families that have worked their butts off to get what they've got. How dare we tell them that we should be able to destroy their lives because there is a need and it doesn't affect us. We'll go home to our serene neighbourhoods and have no problems at all.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Your time's up. Thank you. No other debate? I'll give you the opportunity, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be very quick. I just want to endorse everything that Councillor Whitten said. I want to endorse everything that Councillor Taylor said. I think it's a no-brainer. There is a talk about it being a complying development. To me, it doesn't address the issue of social impact or economic impact. It doesn't comply with the actual act. If you're going to go vote against the rescission motion, you're voting against the act. Simple as that. And we're stickers for the rules and all these type of things, but let's stick to the rules then. That's what it is. But I just want to make mention, Mr Mayor, not of the shattered, not what the motion would be to replace it with is what's written, but add public interest onto the end of that. Over that. That's basically what it is.
Can that be read out, the extension of the motion?
With the rescission motion first.
Yeah, we have to do the rescission motion.
Yeah, and as a seconder, I agree with that.
All right, being no other speakers, I will put the rescission motion. All in favour, please, show of hands. Against? Decision motion is carried. Now, we need grounds for
Yeah, I'm quite happy to move the
Refusal,
recommendation or the replace it with what's written there below, and I'll ask the general manager to read it out because my voice is.
We'll need a second for that. So the motion,
please.
Mr. Chair, the motion now, seconded by Councillor Taylor, by Mr. Councillor Duffy, is that Council resolves to refuse development application DA 141/2019-1 for multi-dwelling housing brackets 10 dwellings at lot 78 DP 1172183 Lantana Place, Orange, on the grounds of social, economic, traffic impacts and the public interest.
Yep.
Right. Put that. All in favour, please. Hands. Against, thank you. Please. Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, I gave during the debate, I gave an indication that I was going to move for shadow motion. That is for staff to come back with a policy, address the issue of social and affordable housing.
I'll just get the CEO to speak.
Councillor Duffy, we are, as you know, we've started the local housing strategy with the Department of Planning guidelines. I would suggest that will contain the very study you speak of. I'm happy to verify that by memo. But exactly what you say is a consideration for the local housing strategy. Let's look at what we do with affordable and social housing. If that's okay with you.
I'm also looking at the actual factors, what Councillor Whitten spoke about as regards to where do we put these things. I mean,
Same.
Same?
It is in that study. That is the vehicle.
I'd like it to come back through the chamber instead of just a memo. I'd rather it comes through the
I will
chamber
give you a
because
briefing
then
next
everyone gets to
meeting.
read it and see it.
Just two things. We'll have, it'll come back, we'll have a briefing on it, and then it'll come into the chamber to vote on,
happy with
okay?
that.
Right. Move on to item now 5.3, dates for meetings of council. 5.3 there.
Recommendations.
Moved Councillor Nugent, seconder. Councillor Leto, all in favour? Aye. Against, thank you. Show of hands. All hands up, please, if you agree. Thank you. 5.4 is the recommendations and resolutions from policy committees. Move Councillor Nugent, seconded Councillor Pravatera. All in favour? Hands, please. Against? All for. 5.5 is an update on outstanding resolution. Oh, gee, sorry. 5.6 is 2018-19 financial statements. I'll go back to it.
Okay. Yep.
5.6 is 2018-19 financial statements.
The recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
Councillor. Second, Councillor Munro. All in favour? Aye. Hands up, thanks. Against?
Mr Mayor, from that, just a couple of questions. On page 103, There's a down the bottom that says net operating result for years before grants contribution provided for capital purposes. Look at the grants up the top.
Yep.
Why don't we the operating grants as well? How come they aren't in there? How come it's only capital grants?
Jason or Jason Cook or Jason?
If you don't mind me talking, Greg. And things like, another question, sorry Mr Mayor, I should be on my feet. In the provision, is that superannuation, PAYG and leave and all that sort of liability, sorry, yep. Oh, that'd be great, yeah. I was just doing the numbers, they sort of just...
Okay. Get back to 5.5, sorry, an update on outstanding resolutions of council, including questions taken on notice and notices of... Oh, sorry, 5.6, show of hands. Hands, thank you. 5.5 is an update on outstanding resolutions of council, including questions taken on notice and notice of motion.
Yeah, move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Move Councillor Nugent, second Councillor Turner. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, look, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I mean, where are we up to as far as our marking on disability spots in this? I did an article the other day about us having a blitz on people parking on medium strips, which I don't agree with, and I've made that point very clear. But disabled spots, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting in the other debate, I was the chairman of Access Committee for 16 years and fought very hard for a lot of the spots. But I have zero tolerance for anyone that parks in a disabled spot, but I think it's pretty rough justice if anyone gets booked parking in a spot, a disabled spot that isn't clearly, very clearly marked. I know that has happened in the past. I'm not saying it's happening at the moment. I don't know whether we've addressed that issue, but it is very important. And the fact of the matter is, those spots, given that it is, and it's about a $600 fine, which can break a family budget. Break a family's budget, totally. Someone gets booked, disabled spot, for being just a bit in there because the lines are very faint on the road, and I've asked that an audit be conducted. I've asked that we address and paint those spots very clearly. I still know there are some very ambiguous ones around town, so I'm asking for action as soon as possible. The other one, Mr Mayor, parking on lines. I would imagine we're still booking people for parking online. So I know that there's probably, they'll come back and they'll say, oh yeah, but that's the law. Well, if it's not inhibiting the car next door, why hit someone up for a couple of $100? I mean, it's unfair. So I'm going to, Mr Mayor, ask again and again and again, where are we up to with the marking of the disabled spots, and where are we up to, and where is the report on the breakdown of when we're booking people and what we're booking them for? Because I'm very interested in that breakdown, because our revenue from parking fines has gone from $300,000 to $1 million.
I paid about $1 million of that.
I want the breakdown, Mr Mayor. I want the breakdown. I want to see where we're actually stinging people. It's hurting people out in the community.
So Taylor, you've made your point. I'll ask Mr Greenham to respond to that.
The guy in the infrastructure chair, because he's going to get up me now, because I've just thought of that.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, certainly have the line marking addressed on the disabled parking spots. It's probably the rest of the line marking is probably not quite so much of an issue. I can certainly.
Could I ask any councillor if they had a specific one that they believe is faded that much people couldn't tell when they drive in, where there's a big circle on the ground that's in blue and it's got marking and didn't know it was disabled, to let the director know? Because I get around the city a fair bit, but I've let him know of one. Yeah.
Could I suggest, Mr Mayor, that when parking officers are looking at cars, that they closely examine where it should be? That might address it too.
It's a point of clarification, Mr Chair.
Sorry, Mr Green, did you finish?
Yes, I finished.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
We have a list of where all our parking things are.
Mr Chair,
What parking things?
Yes.
It shouldn't be easy.
Yeah.
Hard to find.
Yep.
And can I say one thing?
Yep.
Councillor Taylor, through you, Mr Chair, the resolution on parking on lines stands for Lord's Place only at this stage. Do you remember your resolution way back? That's the current resolution on
Yeah, but why
not
people
being
being
fined, not being fined on lines. Lord's Place only at this moment.
But why do people get booked if they park on a line and they're not inhibiting the next car next door? I mean, I don't understand that.
Well, and Mr Hodges, it's the parking rules.
On a clarification, Mr Mayor, I was under the impression that we were getting a report back that said what people were parked for and where they were parked for, because we had issues with the number of community organisations and taxis getting booked for just letting someone off.
Correct, you are.
Which is not
Just,
common sense.
okay,
You know, it's
just
not-
hold a second. You want a report? I want this noted in the minutes. The Councillor Duffy and Councillor Taylor want a report.
Worried about that snail.
Mr Mayor, point of order, Mr Mayor, I asked for a report in many meetings back.
Not a point of order, Councillor Taylor. I'm just reiterating what you asked for. I said I would like it at the next council meeting. Is that okay? Is that okay, Councillor Taylor?
The Mayor, clarification, you just said that Councillor Duffy requested a report. I requested a report many meetings ago.
Well, sorry, can we make sure that it's noted that it was Councillor Taylor asked it for that report?
My name, I'm just worried about
think
the
you are.
report.
And there.
Right. All in favour of 5.5? Show of hands, please. Against? Thank you. 5.7 is Statement of Investments.
Recommendation.
Second it.
Has moved Councillor Whitten, seconded Councillor Turner. All in favour? Hands, please. Thank you. 5.8.
Mr Chair, a couple of clarifications before we move that. The first one, I can't believe that we haven't got the toilet for the block at for the showground, the massive big building down there, which is being used on a regular basis. Why aren't they on the list?
What's that got to do with the Statement of Investments?
Oh, sorry, no, I'm on the next one.
Well. Jumping the gun again.
Well, I was just...
5.7 says quite clearly here, Statement of Investments, August 2019.
I'm getting ready
Right.
for this one.
All in favour?
Of hands.
Against? Thank you. 5.8 is Stronger Country Communities, Round 3.
Mr Chairman,
Well, can we have a mover for first of all?
I'll move.
Councillor Duffy.
I just wonder whether, just two things. One, whether the mover and the second would add the public toilets down here at the massive big building down we have at the showground.
Public toilet will be showground toilets.
Add putting the public toilets in down there. Also, are those first, second, the number 2 and 3, are they the responsibility of local government?
And would someone like to
Because
answer
we had
that
this issue
very
before here
convoluted
where
question?
we're whinging about cost shifting. And here, this could be another
Could you
example.
just repeat yourself? When these requests come up, all councillors had the opportunity of having input. Did you put these forward?
I must have been sick.
Well, we won't have a vote on that.
Need a professional to determine that.
All councillors had the opportunity of bringing matters forward, and we all agreed what was going through there. So right at the nth minute, when these have gone in, you are asking now why they're not in. Well, they're not in there because you didn't put them in there.
I talked to you about it some time ago, but
But you didn't put them in there.
I've got every right to put it in here now. If they're moving in a second, I'm happy to put them in there. But my other question is, the number 2 and 3 on the list there, are they the responsibility of local government? Because we had this problem up here before where we gave away $1 million virtually $1 million worth of funding to something that wasn't our responsibility, and we're the first ones to whinge about cost shifting. And yet we do it.
I just asked a question of clarification for myself. What did we give $1 million away to?
violence centre.
The domestic violence centre. You are saying, you made the statement here that we gave away $1 million to that. Can I have that recorded, team? Thank you.
And I know Councillor myself and Councillor Tony both
Can you answer that
brought the
question
topic up.
on it?
Very often we agree.
Green bottle episodes for us old blokes.
Mr. Chair, I don't see the relevance of that comment. Council has to determine of the projects in this report which order they want to go in. Unless Councillor Duffy adds something to it, that's the business at hand.
Look, I think at the last minute, when everyone's had the opportunity, I think this is absolutely ludicrous, where everyone's had the opportunity, we had discussions, we had briefing sessions, that we come forward with this and now we want to make a change.
Mr. Mayor, there's one of the directors has got something to say.
That'll be at my discretion, Councillor Ramon.
Oh, you weren't watching?
No, that'll be at my discretion, thank you. Mr Maunder, thank you.
I was just letting you know that he had his hand up.
Yes, thank you.
That's all right.
Unless you'd like to come up and
Thank you,
share.
Mr. Chair.
You're doing a good job. Over.
One of the requirements of the grant process that we have to demonstrate that we've consulted with the community and the community supported it. So in this report, there's some detail around that process. So we did that through the Your Say website. Add a project to this list, we won't be able to demonstrate that when we get to the grant process because we didn't public consultation. It wasn't included in the vote. Being knocked out, so it would be an invalid application. So, whilst it's with council's determination if they choose to direct council staff to add it, I think we'd have difficulty in meeting the grant requirements.
If I can just make a comment for me, Councillor Newton, I discussed this with the CEO this morning again, and in fact, going to Sydney next week, trying to see if we can shake some trees out to look at toilet complex and a kitchen for the building that we're talking about at the showground. In this process, if it was in here, well, it's open to if we get the grant money. So, Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm very happy with the list that has been presented to us. It's been through a rigorous process. We should be focusing on what's here in this list, and I would be proposing that we focus on facilities that are not duplicating things that we've already got. So looking at facilities or funding that will provide additional or new services to the community. I also note that under the requirements of the fund, the Strongest Country Communities Fund, we have to, at least 50% of the funding has to be spent on projects that support young people. So my proposed list of priorities would be supported housing for youth, number one.
Can I just cut you off at the for a moment, because everyone's going to have a vote. I'm going to suggest that each council's got 3 votes. Okay? You can put all your 3 votes on one of them if you wish, or you can put them on 3 different ones. Just before we have that, can I just say to the folk from Lantana Place, if you wish, you can leave the council meeting now. The rescission motion has been upheld, just to let you know, because it'll go through to fairly late tonight, I would imagine.
Like us and state.
I'll just wait a moment for the...
recommend staying. It's not go home to television and...
Okay, Councillor Newton. So what we're going to have is I'll let you finish, but we're going to have 3 votes each.
Okay, so that's fine, Mr. Mayor. That's a very democratic way of doing it. I'd just like to finish by saying that supported housing for youth, the bicycle education park, which caters to a different demographic, and the new toilets in the 3 local parks are all providing services which we don't currently have. Yep. The Orange Youth Hub, we already have a youth centre operating out of the Greema Road community centre, and I could see that some funding could be directed to that facility to enhance that facility. I think in terms of youth centres, having one single youth hub in one place in the city would cater for a particular part of the community, but I think having youth centres spread around the community, around the city, is probably a better way of doing it. So footpaths, we could spend untold amounts of money on footpaths. The Anzac Park netball courts would be great, but we've already got a considerable number of outdoor courts there. So that's how I'll be voting.
Hold it. Look, well, okay, I'm just going to cut it off here and not let everyone get up and say their favourite three. Everyone's agreed that we've got 3 votes. I'll just give you, there's supported housing for youth, bicycle education park, Orange Youth Hub, new toilets in 3 local parks, extra footpaths and Anzac Park netball courts.
So just to clarify, Mr Mayor, we get 1 vote for 3.
If you want to put your whole 3 votes on any one of those, you can.
Yep. Okay.
But let them know, or you can write out.
That's 3 hands, Mr Mayor.
No, I'll go.
Do them in the report order. I think. What, you want to do that?
Oh,
order?
God.
Do them in the order.
The order you just read out.
All right, okay. 1 is the supported housing for youth. 3 there. Bicycle education park. 3. Orange Youth Hub. Don't think I'll win this one.
That's right.
New toilets in 3 local parks.
Another arm. I haven't got another
Everyone
arm.
but
I'll use
Duffy.
another leg.
2 Munro votes. 2 Munro votes.
3 votes.
5, 6, 7, 8.
3.
3 votes.
That's me 3 votes.
3 votes.
3 votes. All right, can you count those?
Duffy did not.
Right, okay.
I got mine.
He's not.
Well, how many would? Extra footpaths.
And Anzac.
I'm going to put my other
7,
2 there.
8.
2 up, 2, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, I'll put 2 up.
Okay. 2 kids, 2 Wittens, 2 Taylors. 2 Taylors.
7.
1 Duffy.
It's
1
not.
Turner.
Get that?
And 1 Romano.
I've used all my 3 votes.
9.
And Anzac.
Now, I know the ones who use their votes.
Councillor Witten, can I just confirm, were you 2 or 3 votes?
Were you 2 or 3?
I'm 3 too. I'm out.
So I did 2 on the footpaths and 1 on the toilets.
Yeah, so he's
Oh,
out.
you're back to the toilets.
He's
everyone?
out.
Yep, got that.
Our next one is the...
Vote again if you want me to.
No, not allowed to cheat. Anzac Park netball courts.
2.
Duffy.
1, 2, 3, 5.
Whatever's left over.
There.
Or 3 votes.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, 2, 5.
You had 4.
So I'll just get them to read out priority order. Number 1, obviously, is the toilets.
Get a count, Mr Mayor. An evening for counts.
Can I just check? Last time we submitted to the Stronger Country Communities funding rounds, basically our priority list wasn't necessarily the list that was used to allocate. So we need to take this with a grain of salt and not get our hopes up, don't we? That's
dead
wise.
right. Yep. Don't forget the bureaucrats down there and the ministers at the end of the day have the call.
Community groups can also put in submissions direct for this one, can't they?
Yep.
Like the Showground
Yep.
group, they couldn't they?
They could.
In order.
As could the Pony Club. Yep. This is the order.
Order as resolved from the highest to lowest is the new toilets in 3 local parks is first. Footpaths is number 2. Anzac Park netball courts is number 3. Supported housing for youth is number 4. Bicycle education park is number 5. And the Orange Youth Hub is number 6.
Well, I was quite pleased I got a first and a last.
Resolve that that's the order we're putting forward.
Need someone to move the resolution that's our order. Councillor Munro, second Councillor Witten. All in favour, hands up, please. Against, thank you very, very much.
Mr Mayor, just a matter arising, just noting that order, again, government said that they want to spend at least 50% of the funds on projects which support young people, so they may choose, obviously, a different order to the one we're putting forward.
I think that's exactly what Councillor McRae said.
Oh, similar, but different.
Yeah. What you mightn't have heard. 5.9.
listening.
Move the recommendation.
Indicators, final quarter 18-19. Councillor Whitten, seconded. Councillor Prevatera, all in favour, hands please. Against, thank you. 5.10 is request for financial assistance, quarter 2 of 2019-20, general donations, and there is a correction of a missing resolution.
Recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Move Councillor Nugent. Councillor Miletto, all in favour, hands up please. Councillor Romano, all up, thank you.
Concentration, sorry.
5.11 is the Gosling Creek Reserve Plan of Management.
Move the recommendation.
Who moved that, sorry? Councillor Romano, seconder. Second was Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, I just want a clarification, Mr. Mayor. I just want a clarification. We're talking about events. It doesn't have to be a sporting event. It can be some other event with the camping.
What?
That was the intent of what the recommendation
I know
was.
what the meaning in the dictionary is for events.
Events, okay. Could someone give
I'm
an
Googling it
explanation
now.
of what events means, please, for Councillor Duffy? Yeah, and
Through you, Mr. Chair, can you just go to the councillors to the page of bottom of page 203 to clarify? It should say concluding on 23 August 2019. That should read. So that's just a clarification.
Yep.
I personally, Mr. Mayor, took it to be a sporting event, but I may be wrong.
we'll have to, sorry.
Oh, we're still getting
answer your
clarification?
convoluted question.
I'm waiting on.
No, he just,
sorry, yep.
he just answered it.
That's my opinion.
I'm always happy.
You know, I think we...
Hold it, Councillor Newton.
Hold it.
Got the dictionary.
I'll answer that question. It's a noun. Councillor Duffy, you wanted it. It's a noun. It's a thing that happens or takes place, especially one of importance. It can be a planned public or social occasion. It can be each of several particular contests making up a sports competition. And I can give you more translations and definitions if you wish later. Councillor Newton.
Picking up on that point, I note that one of the submissions from Jane Wisner talked about that she would have liked to have seen the word sporting go in there in front of event. But the resolution that was passed on the 4th of December just talks about events. So, that was what was passed by the council back then. So, but it has to be an event. I mean, camping is not an event. It has to be, the resolution is about camping in conjunction with an event. So I just that out. The 6 metre track, doubling the size of the existing track, as has been pointed out by Mr. King, and also in submissions by the Orange Field naturalists. I mean, that is going to have a major impact on that area. I am very supportive of HPVs. When we had the 3 bike fests some years ago, we had HPVs there at every one of those events. I think the event that happens down, I think in South Australia, Murray Bridge, where they race, I think part of the idea of this is to try and bring an event like that to Orange. But this can't sort of double the size of a sort of bitumen path without it having some impact on the area, on the amenity of the area, on the environmental values of the area. So I have concerns about that. Mr. King raised an interesting point about doing a HPV track down sort of to that north and east or east and a little bit north in that dog walking area where there are currently some ovals, and I wonder whether that is an option that we could explore, which would then mean that we could leave Gosling Creek pretty much as is. It could be a sort of supplementary area, an overflow area. I do have some concerns about parking. Where we're going to, if we are going to have 1,000 people there at a HPV event, and all of the infrastructure that people bring with them, where are people going to park for that? So, look, I'm very much support the idea of HPVs, but I just wonder whether we should be exploring an alternate location, as Mr.
All right, if I may speak you to it. I'm speaking in favour of the Gosling Creek Reserve Plan of Management for a number of reasons. Many, many years ago, Gosling Creek was surrounded by feral pines. It was full of cars, blackberries, foxes, bats there too, but it was a disgrace. And I used to go out there a lot. Now, I remember quite well when I moved in this chamber that we look at removing the feral pines, and holy dooly, did I cop it. All this beautiful vegetation out there, and it should stay as it is and stay serene and all sorts of things. But eventually we got it up and it was cleared and developed through to where it is today. And it's been a number of stages to get it where it is, where all the public can enjoy it, just not for some groups, but for all. Now we have events like the triathlon out there, various running events. Just to the left of it, we have a dog-free lease area where you can let your dogs float about. I would suggest down on those flats to the left-hand side that there was a big event. I've seen it used before for this. You can make a temporary car park down on the flats, which is on the eastern side. I know where I'm talking going. There is room to extend the parking quite substantially. At the time when we were talking about this HPV event, the council agreed with this, going for it, unanimously. Everybody thought it was a fantastic idea. Looking at an event, HPVs, where certainly it seems to be a lot of the people involved in these events are younger people. I think this is something that adds to the value of what we actually have out there. It's not going to affect the environment. The 3 metre path, I can tell you, one of the complaints that I've had quite often out there is, the number of people who use it. If you're going around there and you've got one of those jogging prams or whatever and there's someone else coming the other way, it's not wide enough. I've had people say to me they would like it a bit wider if you've got kids and strollers and kids on trikes and bikes. A bit wider. So, I mean, I think it'll serve a double purpose, that we may gag and get an HB event or some other event, but if we don't, I think it makes it more user-friendly for everyone without having any effect on the actual environment out there or effect on the flora and the fauna out there or the pleasure that people can have on visiting that site. That's what I'm...
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I can remember that.
Oh, sorry.
Remember when you actually moved about those trees and so forth out there. I did support you at the time, and it was about creating a community area, area that everyone could enjoy. I frequent there during the summertime. I mean, it's a wonderful asset for the city from what it was, Mr. Mayor. We forget what it was, and you were dead right. It was a disaster. And now that we've got that asset. But I can't believe, Mr. Mayor, that we are actually in this chamber here tonight as a council debating whether the human
HPVs
vehicles shouldn't be 1,000% supported by this council. I mean, it is an absolutely wonderful concept for this city. It will create tourism dollars beyond any expectations. We're not talking, for heaven's sakes, of reopening Nublar and inviting Craig Lowndes and Jamie Whincup up to test the track and have the V8 supercars. We're talking about human-powered vehicles. I'd love the V8s, by the way. I'd love Nublar to reopen, but that's not going to happen now. There's a hospital. But the fact of the matter is that I really can't believe we're even debating this. I think it should be a priority for this council to pursue in the future. wonderful area out there, and it would give it yet another purpose out there. On a summer's Sunday afternoon, that is one of the most magnificent settings you'll find out there. Now, a little bit more extended bitumen out there that's going to create and help pay to not only maintain but enhance that area, plus other areas of the city, I think is only a win-win for everyone. And I don't think there are too many of my fellow councillors. Right. And I can't honestly believe that the Greens are against human-powered vehicles. I mean, so
Mr. Mayor, it's complete misrepresentation of what I said, Mr. Mayor. Unbelievable.
I have a say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm delighted that this has finally come to an end and it's going to the Minister for Lands and Forestry. Been waiting a long time for this, and I didn't know the history, Mr. Mayor or Councillor Taylor, about the pines. What were they called, Barry?
Beryl
Terra remembers them too. It is just that area has just expanded into a beautiful site. People can enjoy it, not only sporting events, but as I originally put up, as camping with fishing, water activities. Finally we got there. I'm delighted. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to correct something here. I visited Murray Ridge about the huge HPV thing. My concern is the figure of 1,000 people. I think Murray Ridge attracts around about 30,000 people to it. It's a mini Bathurst.
Does.
Fantastic. So, something.
All in favour?
Oh, just a sec. Yeah, all right.
All in favour? Hands up.
Yeah, okay, go.
One against. Thank you.
Matter arising when we're talking about out there, Mr. Mayor and councillors, I wonder if we could get some sort of an idea from staff. I know there's a terrible lot of grass out there. I salivate every time I go past, wishing my cows could go on there, but we really need to look at a fire action plan for that tall grass around out there. We either mow it, do something about it, because we will have a fire problem.
RFS headquarters is across the road.
It's not far away.
5.12.
Chairman, Mr. Mayor,
Hold it. There's development application DA 222/2019 in brackets 1, 10 William Street.
Mr. Mayor, I want to move the fact.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be declaring an interest as I.
Sorry, thanks, Councillor Taylor. Thank you. You can go into the office, Councillor. Councillor Duffy.
Mayor, thank you. I'll wait till the said councillor leaves the room. Yeah, I'd like to move the council approve development application DA 222/20191 for demolition, tree removal at Lot 2, Section C, DP 714681, 10 William Street, Orange.
Second.
Have a mover in Councillor Duffy, a second in Councillor Munro.
I just want to encourage councillors to go up into Austin Street. Have a look at the little park there. I've got photos of it here, which I'll share with you. A massive big tree. Some of that's smashed and it's fallen down. It's still laying down, probably there for a few weeks. But if that was in someone's backyard or something, there would have been extremely damaged, and lucky there was no kids under at the same time. I've always said massive big gum trees, yellow box trees, they don't belong in cities. They belong out in the bush.
It's not a yellow box tree, it's candlebark.
That's all I need to say.
Councillor Miletto and then Councillor McKay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I speak against the recommendation. I do not support the motion. Basically, for the following reasons, I actually went up there today and had a look at the tree myself, and I had some major concerns, most of which have already been addressed with regards to damage to the footpath, which clearly marked with white lines saying that there are hazards there. That was obviously a concern to me. There was major structure to the damage to the structure of the building. It's been noted that the tree is in close proximity to Telstra services near the footpath as well. I'm concerned that the ongoing route system may go into that service. As the applicant has indicated, there is dropping of large branches onto vehicles. Major concerns regarding public liability and potential common law action if council doesn't support the cutting down of the tree. And I believe that injuries to pedestrians or property is foreseeable. And I think the secret here is that is a foreseeable injury to people in that area. And I believe if we don't do it and support, refuse a recommendation, that council is going to leave itself liable for future damages. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor
Can I get a
McRae.
clarification, Mr Mayor? Councillor Duffy's moved a motion to knock the tree over.
Yeah, so you're supporting that. You're
Speaking in favour, that's what I said.
yeah,
Sorry,
No.
Councillor Millett. Yeah.
speaking for Councillor McRae.
Look, I've just got a clarification that I would suggest we would need a recommendation which actually details an approval, which has details of the conditions. It is a residential area. We'd need to have hours that the work was going to be done. We'd need to define whether there was a replacement required and what would be suitable, so there's not a replanting of a similar species if indeed it's deemed inappropriate. And I think that also need to be some requirements as to who was going to be doing the remediation of the footpath. So I would caution councillors that if we actually had an approval tonight that we don't actually have the appropriate information and conditions, I'd recommend that we actually defer to have a report for a recommendation for approval if that's the will of the council.
Mr Chair, it's a very good point, and perhaps Councillor Duffy would agree to a motion that asks for council staff to bring back a notice of approval for the removal at the next council meeting with conditions.
The seconder, I would agree with that.
The second is happy to do that.
I'm not.
I'm in agreement, but can we have it at the next meeting?
Absolutely.
Councillor Munro.
Oh, look, I'd like, look at it. Have a look at it.
I have.
No, that's great. The size of it, if it, we get a storm in the next week, the lady can organise, or we can help organise a proper person to chop it down and get it all done in quick
It's not
time.
council's responsibility.
Okay, well, the person that owns the property, the veterinary, I believe that we should make a decision now. Everyone can see that the tree needs to be removed. We know the usual conditions of work is between 7, what is it, 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock. That's not policy. It's already done with building. You want to build a house or put a shed up, you can't do it, start at 5 o'clock and finish at 9 o'clock at night. You're going to knock off. So I would say we make it as usual with any building proposal, the time that we spend day, what time it starts, what time is it finished. I'd like to think we can give them clarification, we get it out of the road tonight, and ask council to support that. I think, look at it, a storm, that's a beautiful old home, could be next week, maybe a week after. It might take 3 months for it to get someone to take it down. But as soon as we can, I think we should be able to show a bit of leadership and say, do it as quick as you can within these perimeters. Can't we do that?
Mr Mayor, can I just make a quick comment?
No. Sit down and just wait for everyone to have their opportunity. Thank you. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise to support your motion, Councillor Duffy.
You're going to lose it if you keep jumping up.
Staff and Councillor McRae that we need to do it way, and that's to get a report back. And look, this is a no-brainer. The owner of the property is going to fund the tree coming down. We've been flagged that it's a possible issue. We'd probably be negligent if we didn't deal with it because Murphy's Law, storm comes along and falls over, and God forbid it hurts somebody. It's a beautiful tree. It's a shame it's got to come down, but it's just in the wrong spot. So
I'll speak next. I'm just going to beat you to it this time. Look, as you would know, I find it very difficult seeing any tree removed. But one thing that I've always said, that unfortunately there are a number of trees that have been planted in the wrong place. did speak with some of the staff this afternoon. I referred to at one stage where we had Nikolai gums. Everyone had to have a Nikolai gum. Something wrong if you didn't have a Nikolai, and people were growing them in orange left, right and centre. They grew that quickly, shallow rooted. Next thing they'll land on people's garages. Everyone's going out and pulling them out. In that area, by the way, it is a magnificent tree. It is a candlebark. It's a very statuous tree. Pretty, yes, but in the wrong place. There is damage to the footpath. There is damage going into the building. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. One thing about candlebarks, as with most eucalypts, not all, they can drop a limb. Usually when they drop a limb is not when most of you are thinking. It's not in heavy winds and so forth. It's usually in hot conditions when there's no wind and it's quite still. Still lots of research work happening on why it happens. I haven't really come up with why it happens yet. But it actually does happen. Now, I had a look at Dora Street. I had a look down William Street. I looked from Byng Street looking up, and it is a statuous tree. But I think there's a place for everything. And in this case, that tree is eventually going to have to come down. Now, I've seen one of the recommendations of pruning it. You start pruning those sort of trees out and you get displacement of weight. You will quite often get rot goes into the cuts, but you can do certain things to stop it. And it's not by pruning it and so forth as above what that tree is actually there at the moment. So I think in the case here, it's weighing up common sense. And I think in this case it's common sense. I know I'll get a hammering over this, I can tell you, because I chained myself to a tree once. You know, up here there was a street tree. But that was a street tree where we had 6 trees removed for no reason whatsoever. In this case, there is possibility. I do not agree with some of the comments that have been made, you know, the council will be liable if we don't do this, etc. and so forth. Well, those sorts of things are covered by insurance. We have a very, very large tree in our parks. Lots of big trees across here in Robertson Park, Cook Park, other places around town. I think you treat these issues on a needs basis and on merit. In this case, in my own heart, I think it is best for the tree to be removed. I'm quite sure that the applicants would have an opportunity then of been doing some landscaping with inside the fence, putting some shrubs in or whatever it may be. Love to see it remain, but I just think it's possible. It's going to create more problems than it's going to solve.
Mr Mayor,
Councillor Turner.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Councillor Duffy, the second time tonight, I'll be supporting your motion. For different reasons, but I had a look at the tree today and it is a beautiful tree, but it's in the wrong spot. And it is on private land as far as litigation to council, etc., etc. But it's always been my understanding that in dry conditions, eucalypts drop leaves first. After that, they drop branches. As you said, on a perfectly still day, nothing to do with the wind. They're just helping to preserve moisture and for the trees to continue to live. So I couldn't believe what a beautiful tree it was. It must be getting moisture from somewhere, I don't know, for it to be in such beautiful condition. But as it has been said, it is in the wrong spot. Even, you know, you can trim a couple of branches so it's not overhanging the house. But it'll certainly be overhanging the house if it falls over. But there's no sign that it will fall over. But it is every sign that it can drop branches, and it's already been mentioned tonight of 2 rather major branches. So who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. So I'll support the motion with that brief report coming back, what might replace it, etc., etc. But as far as Councillor Munro is concerned, that would be covered, you know, as far as the hours of operation. All the licensed contractors, they know what hours they can work. That's not an issue. They know what hours they can work. But we'll just wait till the report comes back if the motion is 6.
Right, hold it. Councillor Munro had a question,
Don't worry about it, Red. It's all right. It'll go right the way, I think.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Oh, look, you know, I've been on a hiding to nothing tonight, so I might as well have another go. In terms of this tree, I agree with everyone that said it is a magnificent tree, and it is recognised as such by manager for city presentation, by our heritage advisor, by Bruce Smith, the tree surgeon, all of whom have said, recommended that it be retained, so that it can be retained. I wonder why now, like that tree's been there for a long time, so why now is a sudden urgency to remove it? It's a, and when I read the Cook and Rowe report, the Cook Rowe report, in terms of the impact on the building, the cracking, there seems to be quite a number of factors which are leading to the cracking one of which may be the tree roots. So just because that tree is removed doesn't necessarily guarantee that there will no longer be cracking within the. I do understand that business operating there, there's cars parked underneath it. There's a risk of branches falling off and damaging the vehicles, as has already happened. But I sort of still go back to the staff recommendation, which is to retain it. Trees like that are very valuable. In fact, there's a tree valuation calculator for the City of Melbourne, and when you plug in the figures for this particular tree to that calculator, you get a figure of $116,269 approximately. So they're not just they're not just living things that get in the way and drop branches. They're actually valuable assets for the city. So I'd just like to put that alternative view before we vote.
On Councillor Nugent.
I just want to close the debate if that's possible. Unless you want more to say. Mr. Mayor, I just want to close the debate. I think if you look a bit towards the back of the room there, I don't think an extra 14 days would worry too much with the owners of 10 William Street. They'll probably nod their head.
Are you
addressing?
Who are you addressing?
Will.
You're closing the debate. Do it properly. The elections are not for another 6 or 7 months, 8 months away.
And we get the report coming back in 14 days.
Sorry, yeah. Okay.
Report coming back in 14 days. Another 14 days won't hurt. So.
Right, that closes the debate. Now I'll get him to read it, the CEO to read it out.
I was a seconder for that motion.
Yeah. You're the seconder.
Councillors, the motion.
Not for the third one, I didn't know.
Is that staff bring back to the next council meeting a notice of approval for the removal of the candlebark gum at 10 William Street, Orange.
What are the conditions?
Yeah, with conditions, yeah. That's within the notice.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. All in favour, hands up please.
Yeah, as long as it comes down.
Against?
Yep.
Sorry?
Councillor Taylor. You can come
Oh,
back
sorry.
in. Yeah. Bring Councillor Taylor back in.
Okay. You have a late item.
Happy to move it, Mr. Mayor.
5.1.3.
Mr. Mayor.
Get back, thank you. So the late item is general reports. That's the 2020 local government elections. Move Councillor Duffy. Second Councillor Nugent. All in favour, hands please. Against, Councillor Romano's not. Sorry. The Chief Executive Officer will advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by a closed meeting of Orange City Council. I extend an invitation to Any member of the public present at the meeting to make a representation to council as to whether the meeting should be closed for a particular item. In accordance with the Local Government Act of 1993 and the Local Government Act in brackets General Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of a kind as referred in Section 10A brackets 2 of the Act and should be dealt with in a confidential session of the council meeting closed to the press and the public. The items to be considered are 6.1, acceptance of a tender for CBD under awning White Way lighting, and 6.2, ground land negotiation. The reason for confidentiality, the item is classified confidential under the provisions of sections 10A, brackets 2, brackets C, information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. Is the live streaming off?